Wu Bin stood frozen outside Priscilla's apartment building in downtown San Francisco, his hand still resting on the door handle of his blacked-out Mercedes. He had already said goodbye 20 minutes ago, already walked away, already convinced himself this was the right decision. But those two words she whispered as he left kept replaying in his mind like a broken record. Stay safe. Not goodbye, not I'll miss you. Just stay safe, with tears streaming down her fair brown skin and her voice cracking on the word safe. His chest tightened as he stared at the building's entrance. Every logical part of his brain told him to get in the car and drive away. The Park family had made their threat crystal clear. Anyone close to Wu Bin would become collateral damage in their escalating business war. He was the head of the Choi family empire, one of the most powerful Korean business dynasties on the West Coast. He had enemies. Real enemies who wouldn't hesitate to hurt anyone he cared about. 3 days earlier, everything had been simple. Wu Bin had walked into Priscilla's small graphic design studio in the Mission District to commission work for his legitimate business operations. The Choi family owned a network of high-end Korean restaurants and entertainment venues across California, and his marketing team recommended her for a complete brand redesign. She was 26, focused, talented, and completely unimpressed by his reputation. Everyone else in San Francisco either feared the Choi name or wanted something from it. Politicians sought his family's donations. Business owners wanted partnerships. Society figures angled for invitations to exclusive events. Priscilla had just asked him what colors he preferred for his logo redesign. That first meeting lasted 4 hours instead of the scheduled one. Business conversation turned into something else entirely. She challenged his ideas, pushed back on his assumptions, and treated him like a regular client instead of the heir to a business empire worth hundreds of millions. When he left her studio that evening, Wu Bin realized he hadn't felt that relaxed in years. The next day, he came back with excuse after excuse to discuss the project. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into dinner. Professional boundaries dissolved with alarming speed. 72 hours. That's all it took for Priscilla to become the first person in years who made Wu Bin feel like more than just his family name. She told him about growing up in Oakland after losing her parents in a car accident when she was 19. About raising herself through community college while working 3 jobs. About building her small business from absolutely nothing, one client at a time. He told her things he had never told anyone. About the crushing weight of running an empire built by his grandfather. About being 29 years old and exhausted from constantly watching his back. About the loneliness of a life where everyone wanted something from you. Then this morning, everything shattered. Representatives from the Park family left a message at his office. The words were carefully chosen, technically not a direct threat, but the meaning was clear. The business war between the families was escalating, and anyone close to Wu Bin would be caught in the crossfire. So he made the hardest decision of his life. He showed up at Priscilla's apartment with his face carefully blank, his voice cold, and told her that the past 3 days had been a mistake, that she was just a distraction, that whatever this was between them needed to end immediately. She had simply nodded. No tears, not then. No questions or demands for explanation. She just walked him to the door with quiet dignity. And then she whispered it. Stay safe. Like she could see right through his lies. Like she understood he was protecting her even as he hurt her. Like even in that moment, she cared more about his well-being than her own heartbreak. That's what broke him. Wu Bin turned away from his car and walked back toward her building. His head of security, waiting in a separate vehicle, spoke into his earpiece with concern, but Wu Bin ignored him. For once in his carefully controlled life, he was going to make a decision based on what he wanted instead of what was strategically smart. He pressed the buzzer for her apartment. Yes, her voice came through the intercom, rough like she had been crying. It's me, please let me up. Long silence, then the door buzzed open. Priscilla stood in her doorway on the 3rd floor, mascara streaked down her face, wearing sweatpants and an oversized shirt. She clearly had not expected to see him again. The sight of her pain he had caused, made Wu Bin's carefully constructed walls crumble completely. I lied, he said before she could speak. About everything I said earlier, I lied. She crossed her arms, protective. Then why did you say it? Because this morning I received a message from the Park family. They know about you. They threatened anyone in my life who matters to me. He ran a hand through his hair, his usual composure completely gone. The Parks and my family have been rivals for 15 years over a business deal that went bad in Los Angeles. It's gotten worse lately, more aggressive. I thought if I pushed you away, if I ended this before it really started, you would be safe. That's not your decision to make alone, Priscilla said quietly. I know that now. Wu Bin stepped closer. I came back because someone who has known me for 3 days just showed more genuine concern for my safety than people I have known my entire life. You told me to stay safe even after I hurt you, and I realized that I am tired of making every decision based on fear. Priscilla studied his face for a long moment. Then she stepped back and led him into her small apartment. They talked until sunrise painted the San Francisco sky in shades of orange and pink. Wu Bin told her everything about the Choi family business, about the legitimate operations, and the complicated politics with other Korean families, about the Park rivalry and what the threat actually meant. Priscilla listened to all of it, then said something that surprised him. I grew up in East Oakland. I know what danger looks like. I have had friends hurt by gang violence. I have walked home alone through neighborhoods where I had to stay alert every second. She met his eyes directly. I understand the risk you are talking about, but I also understand that I get to make my own choices about what risks I am willing to take. This is different, Wu Bin argued. These are not random street criminals. The Park family has resources and reach. And I am not some helpless person who needs you to make decisions for me. Her voice was firm, but not angry. If you want to end this because you do not actually care about me, then fine. I am a grown woman and I will handle it. But do not end it because you think you are protecting me without even asking what I want. Wu Bin felt something in his chest loosen. What do you want? I want to know if what I felt the past 3 days was real. I want to know if you actually care about me or if I was just convenient. She paused. And I want you to trust me enough to let me make informed decisions about my own life. It was real, he said immediately. Every moment was real, and that is exactly why I am terrified. They agreed to try, but carefully, secretly, just until Wu Bin could find a way to neutralize the Park family threat and ensure Priscilla's safety. For 2 beautiful weeks, they stole moments together. Secret dinners in his private penthouse in Atherton, one of the wealthiest communities in America, where privacy was guaranteed. Late nights in her studio where she worked on his designs and he sketched building plans, sharing the architectural dreams he had abandoned for family duty. Wu Bin showed her sides of himself he kept buried. The man who still drew building designs in rare, quiet moments. The person who donated anonymously to Oakland youth programs. The son who visited his grandmother every Sunday without fail. Priscilla showed him her world too. The community that had raised her after her parents died. The small business owner network she belonged to. The dreams she had of one day opening a nonprofit to teach design skills to underprivileged kids. It was perfect, until it was not. Priscilla called him on a Tuesday afternoon, her voice shaking. Someone vandalized my studio. Wu Bin was there in 15 minutes. The studio had not been robbed. Equipment was untouched. Client files were intact, but spray painted across her main workspace in red paint were the words, "Bad company brings bad luck." The Park family knew about her, and they wanted both of them to know it. Wu Bin immediately moved Priscilla to a secure location. A private residence in Palo Alto that he owned but never used. The house was beautiful, surrounded by the kind of quiet wealth that defined Silicon Valley's most exclusive neighborhoods. It was also a cage, and both of them knew it. Priscilla was furious, not at the vandalism or even the threat, but at having her entire life disrupted. Her studio was closed temporarily. Her clients were being redirected. Her independence was gone. This is exactly what they want, she argued as Wu Bin's security team swept the Palo Alto house for the 3rd time. They want you isolated and making decisions from a place of fear. They want you dead. Wu Bin's control finally snapped. Do you understand that? This is not some movie or a game. These are real people with real resources who have made it clear that hurting you is the way to hurt me. So what? Priscilla shot back. I am supposed to just hide here forever, give up everything I built because your family has enemies. Yes, the word came out harsher than he intended. Yes, you hide here until I fix this, until I make sure you are safe. I did not ask you to fix anything. I asked you to trust me. The fight ended with both of them crying, holding each other on the floor of a house that cost more than Priscilla would earn in a lifetime, both terrified of losing what they had just found. Wu Bin threw himself into resolving the park situation through every legitimate channel available. The rivalry between the families stemmed from a disputed property development deal in Los Angeles 15 years ago. His grandfather and David Park's father had been partners on a luxury residential project that went catastrophically wrong. Accusations of contract violations flew both ways. The partnership dissolved into lawsuits and countersuits. For 15 years, the two families had been locked in a cold war of business competition, blocking each other's deals, poaching each other's partners. Nothing illegal, but relentlessly aggressive. Wu Bin met with his legal team daily, searching for some angle that would end the rivalry once and for all. Some settlement or compromise that would get the Parks to back off. Meanwhile, Priscilla refused to be a passive victim hiding in a luxury prison. She had built her business through research and hustle, and she applied those same skills to understanding the situation she was in. Using her laptop and access to public business records, she started digging into the Choi Park rivalry. She read through 15 years of news articles, business filings, and legal documents. She traced the original property development deal back to its inception. And she found something that Wu Bin's expensive lawyers had missed. The original partnership agreement between Wu Bin's grandfather and David Park's father had been based on environmental impact reports that cleared the Los Angeles property for development. Those reports turned out to be fraudulent, which triggered the entire cascade of problems that destroyed the partnership. But Priscilla found records showing that those fraudulent reports had been submitted by a third-party consulting firm that neither the Chois nor the Parks had hired directly. A firm that had quietly benefited from the two families being locked in conflict for 15 years. She brought her findings to Wu Bin on a Friday evening, spreading documents across his dining room table in Atherton. What if you and the Parks have been fighting the wrong enemy this whole time? She asked. Wu Bin stared at the evidence she had compiled. Transaction records, business connections, a pattern of third-party interference that went back over a decade. Raymond Chen, he said quietly, recognizing a name that appeared repeatedly in Priscilla's research. Chen was a business broker who operated in the gray areas between legitimate and questionable. He had connections to multiple Korean families in California, but belonged to none of them. He facilitated deals, traded information, and somehow always came out ahead. He submitted the fraudulent environmental reports through a shell company, Priscilla explained. Then, when your families started fighting, he positioned himself as a neutral party who could facilitate communication between you. He has been charging both sides for information about the other for 15 years. He has been playing us against each other, Wu Bin said, his mind racing through implications. Keeping the rivalry active because it benefits him. Exactly. And if you and David Park realized you had a common enemy instead of fighting each other. Everything changes. Wu Bin pulled out his phone. I need to arrange a meeting with David Park, neutral territory, just the two of us. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in his chest. They finally had leverage to end this. The meeting took place at a prestigious business club in Newport Beach, one of Orange County's wealthiest coastal cities. The club was neutral ground where powerful families often conducted delicate negotiations. David Park was 53, silver-haired, and carried himself with the kind of confidence that came from building an empire from the ground up after his father's death. He looked at Wu Bin with open suspicion when they sat down in a private room overlooking the Pacific Ocean. You requested this meeting, David said. I am here as a courtesy to your grandfather, who I once respected. You have 30 minutes. Wu Bin laid out everything Priscilla had discovered. The fraudulent environmental reports, Raymond Chen's shell companies, the pattern of manipulation that had kept their families at war for over a decade. At first, David was skeptical. Then he started asking questions, detailed questions that showed he was actually considering the possibility. Chen has been feeding me information about your family's business moves for years, David admitted. Always accurate, always helpful. I never questioned where he got it. He probably got it from my family the same way, Wu Bin said, selling information both directions while we paid him to spy on each other. David was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the ocean. Then he said, "My father died believing your grandfather betrayed him. That belief poisoned the last 5 years of his life. If what you are saying is true, if Chen orchestrated the entire thing." "Then we have both been fools," Wu Bin finished, "and he has been profiting from it." They agreed to a temporary truce while they investigated Chen's involvement. David would access his family's records and communications with Chen. Wu Bin would do the same. They would meet again in 1 week. As Wu Bin drove back to the Bay Area, he felt something close to optimism. The park threat might actually end. Priscilla could return to her normal life. They could build something real without constantly looking over their shoulders. He called Priscilla from the car to tell her about the meeting. She did not answer. He tried again. Still no answer. A cold dread settled in his stomach. He called the security team stationed outside the Palo Alto house. "Is everything okay there?" "Yes, sir. All quiet. Ms. Brooks left about 2 hours ago with a female visitor. She said it was her cousin and that she would be back by evening." Wu Bin's blood went cold. "What cousin? Priscilla does not have any family." Silence on the other end. Then, "Sir, she seemed to know the woman. They were friendly. She went voluntarily." "Send me the security footage. Now." The video appeared on his phone within seconds. It showed Priscilla leaving the house with a woman around her age, stylishly dressed, talking and laughing like old friends. Wu Bin did not recognize her. He forwarded the footage to his intelligence team with orders to identify the woman immediately. Then his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A photo of Priscilla, unharmed, sitting in what looked like a nice hotel room. She did not look scared, just confused. The message below the photo read, "She's safe. For now, let's talk business." Wu Bin's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Someone had taken Priscilla. Someone she trusted enough to leave with voluntarily. His phone rang, his intelligence chief. "Sir, we identified the woman from the footage. Her name is Jessica Brooks. She is Priscilla's cousin from her mother's side. They were close growing up, but had some kind of falling out about 3 years ago over their parents' estate." "Where is Jessica now?" That is the interesting part. For the past 2 years, she has been working for Raymond Chen, administrative assistant at one of his consulting firms in San Jose. Everything clicked into place. Chen had not just been watching Wu Bin, he had been planning this. He knew about Priscilla, he knew about Jessica, and he had used their family connection to get to her. Wu Bin's phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "Here's how this works. You drop your investigation into my business affairs. You convince David Park to do the same. You both go back to your profitable little rivalry and forget you ever heard my name. Do that, and your girlfriend goes home safe. Keep digging, and she becomes collateral damage in a much bigger game. You have 24 hours to decide." Wu Bin immediately contacted David Park and explained the situation. He expected resistance or an "I told you so" about getting involved with someone outside their world. Instead, David surprised him. "Chen made fools of both our families for 15 years, David said, his voice hard with anger. "That ends now. We find the girl, then we finish this." They met at Wu Bin's main office in Cupertino, deep in Silicon Valley's tech corridor. David brought his head of security. Wu Bin had his entire intelligence team assembled. "Chen is a broker, not a fighter," Wu Bin said, studying the information they had compiled on Raymond Chen's operations. "He deals in information and leverage. He will not hurt Priscilla unless he thinks it benefits him. But he will not hesitate if he feels cornered," David added. We need to be smart about this. While they strategized, Priscilla was having her own revelation in a luxury hotel suite in Santa Clara. Jessica had brought her here under false pretenses, claiming she wanted to reconcile after their 3-year estrangement. Priscilla, who had lost everyone else in her family, wanted desperately to believe her cousin had changed. The truth came out within an hour of arriving at the hotel. I am sorry, Jessica said, packing the suite's living room. I am so sorry, Scylla, but I need this job. I need the money. You do not understand what it has been like. What are you talking about? Priscilla's confusion turned to cold understanding as Jessica explained about working for Raymond Chen, about being asked to reconnect with Priscilla and gain her trust, about the bonus Chen promised for delivering her. You sold me out, Priscilla said quietly, to your boss for money. It is not that simple, Jessica's voice cracked. I am in debt, real debt, medical bills from when Mom got sick before she died, credit cards I used to survive when I could not find work. Chen pays me well and he said you would not be hurt. He just needs leverage. Leverage against Wu Bin, against his family. Priscilla felt betrayed in a way that went deeper than the immediate situation. Jessica was her only living family, and she had traded that for a paycheck. But beneath the betrayal, Priscilla's analytical mind was already working. She studied her cousin, really looked at her. Jessica was well-dressed, but the clothes were a bit too tight, like she had lost weight recently. There were dark circles under her eyes that makeup did not quite cover. Her hands shook slightly. This was not a villain. This was someone desperate and scared who had made a terrible choice. How much does Chen know about me? Priscilla asked. Jessica looked surprised by the question. What? About me and Wu Bin. About what I have been doing the past few weeks. How much did you tell Chen? Just that you were seeing someone from the Choi family, that you had been staying at a house in Palo Alto. Jessica paused. Why? Does Chen know what I do for a living? He knows you are a graphic designer. That is how I explained being able to reconnect with you. I said I needed design work done. Priscilla's mind raced. Chen knew she was connected to Wu Bin, but probably did not know she had been the one to uncover his manipulation of the Choi Park rivalry. He thought she was just collateral, a weakness to exploit. That gave her an advantage. Jess, I need you to listen to me very carefully, Priscilla said. You made a mistake, a big one, but it does not have to define the rest of your life. You can help fix this. How? Chen is not the kind of person you cross. He knows things about people, dangerous things. Exactly, he knows things, which means he keeps records. Priscilla leaned forward. You work in his office. You have access to his files. You can help me get evidence of what he has been doing. Jessica's eyes went wide. He would destroy me. He is already using you. Right now you are a tool to him. The moment you are not useful anymore, what do you think happens? Priscilla kept her voice gentle but firm. Help me, and I will help you get out from under his control. I promise. For a long moment, Jessica just stared at her cousin. Then slowly, she nodded. Jessica smuggled Priscilla her work laptop that evening, claiming she needed it to finish some urgent tasks for Chen. The laptop had limited access to Chen's business database, but it was enough. Priscilla, who had spent years working with digital design software and understood computer systems better than most people realized, started carefully copying files. She could not risk downloading everything at once. That would trigger alerts. Instead, she worked methodically, grabbing specific files that showed Chen's pattern of manipulation. Communications with both Choi and Park family members. Records of information sold to both sides. Transaction histories that proved he had been profiting from their rivalry for over a decade. Most damning of all, she found evidence that Chen had orchestrated several business deals that went bad for both families, then positioned himself as the person who could fix the fallout. She needed to get this information to Wu Bin, but Chen had confiscated her phone. The hotel suite had internet access, but any obvious communication would be noticed. Then Priscilla remembered something. Her design software automatically backed up project files to the cloud. She used that software for legitimate work every day, and it was installed on Jessica's laptop for the cover story about doing design work together. She created a new project file, embedded the copied documents as image assets within the design file's structure, and let it automatically sync to her cloud account. To anyone monitoring internet traffic, it would look like normal software operation. Then she used the software's collaboration feature to share the project with an email address she knew Wu Bin's tech team monitored for her business communications. The message she embedded in the project metadata was simple. Have evidence. Santa Clara Fairmont Hotel, Suite 412. Need 2 more days to get everything. Within 3 hours, she got a response through the same method. Just 2 words embedded in a return file. Be careful. Those 2 words made her eyes well up. Even now, even in this situation, Wu Bin's first concern was her safety. She sent back, always am, trust me. For 2 days, Priscilla worked carefully, gathering evidence while Jessica ran interference with Chen. Her cousin was terrified but committed now, understanding that this was the only way out. They learned Chen's patterns. He checked in twice daily through encrypted messaging. He had security monitoring the hotel but not inside the suite itself, respecting Jessica's privacy as a trusted employee. Priscilla used that privacy to compile a devastating case against Raymond Chen. Not just his manipulation of the Choi Park rivalry, but evidence of similar schemes with other families and businesses. Chen had built an empire on information brokerage and strategic manipulation, always staying just on the legal side of the line, but clearly unethical. On the second evening, Priscilla uploaded the final files to her cloud account. She had everything Wu Bin would need to destroy Chen's credibility and business operations. But Chen was smart, smarter than they had anticipated. His monitoring systems flagged the unusual amount of cloud sync activity from Jessica's laptop. Not enough to be certain something was wrong, but enough to make him cautious. He moved them both to a private estate he owned in Los Altos Hills, one of the wealthiest zip codes in America, with much tighter security. Priscilla managed to send one final message before her access was cut off. I have everything you need. It's uploaded. Get me out. Wu Bin received Priscilla's final message while sitting in a strategy meeting with David Park and their combined security teams. The original plan had been to use the evidence Priscilla gathered to pressure Chen into releasing her, then destroy his business with coordinated legal action. But now Chen had moved her to a secure location with professional security. A direct assault was out of the question. Chen was not violent by nature, but cornered people made desperate choices. We need a different approach, Wu Bin said, studying the intelligence reports on the Los Altos Hills estate. Chen built his entire operation on being the smartest person in the room, on having information others don't. We need to flip that advantage. David nodded slowly. We have his files now, thanks to your girlfriend. We know everything he knows. More than he knows we know, Wu Bin corrected. He still thinks Priscilla is just leverage. He has no idea she is the one who exposed his entire operation. They spent the next 6 hours coordinating with 17 different families and businesses that Chen had manipulated over the years. Using the evidence Priscilla had gathered, they built an airtight case. Then Wu Bin did something that surprised everyone. He called Raymond Chen directly. We need to talk, Wu Bin said when Chen answered. Face to face, you name the location. Chen laughed. I already told you my terms. Drop the investigation, go back to fighting with the Parks, and your girlfriend comes home safe. The investigation is over, Wu Bin said calmly. We found everything we needed. I am coming to you alone to discuss terms of your surrender. You can either agree to meet with me at your estate, or you can wait for the police and federal investigators who will be arriving tomorrow morning with warrants. The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds. Then Chen said, Come alone, no security. If I see anyone else, the deal is off. Agreed. I will be there in 2 hours. David Park looked at Wu Bin like he had lost his mind. You are actually going alone. He is not going to hurt me. He's going to want to know what we have and what we want. This is a negotiation, not a confrontation. Wu Bin checked his watch. Besides, I will not actually be alone. I will have something much better than security. What? The truth, and 17 families ready to destroy him if anything happens to me or Priscilla. 2 hours later, Wu Bin pulled up to the Los Altos Hills estate in his Mercedes, alone as promised. The property was stunning, perched in the hills with views of the entire Silicon Valley. The kind of place that cost $20 million minimum. Chen met him at the door personally, dressed casually in expensive clothes, looking completely calm. I am impressed you came. Most people in your position would send lawyers or security. Most people in my position do not have what I have, Wu Bin replied. They sat in Chen's home office, a room designed to intimidate with its expensive art and floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the valley, where billions of dollars in tech wealth lived and worked. So what exactly do you think you have? Chen asked, pouring himself a drink. Wu Bin pulled out his phone and started listing facts. Complete records of your manipulation of the Choi Park rivalry, going back 15 years. Evidence that you submitted fraudulent environmental reports through shell companies to sabotage the original Lowe's Angels development deal. Transaction records showing you sold information to both families while pretending to be a neutral broker. Communications proving you deliberately kept the rivalry active because it was profitable. Chen's smile faded slightly, but he maintained composure. Interesting story, hard to prove. Already proved. In about 3 hours, 17 different families and businesses are filing coordinated lawsuits against your various entities. The evidence has been submitted to courts in 3 counties. Your assets will be frozen by end of business today. Wu Bin showed him documentation on his phone. We also have parallel federal investigations opening into tax evasion and corporate espionage. You are finished, Chen. The color drained from Chen's face as he scrolled through the documents. How did you? Does it matter? Wu Bin put his phone away. You have 2 choices. Release Priscilla and Jessica Brooks immediately, cooperate with the legal proceedings, and the families have agreed not to pursue criminal charges. You will lose your businesses and your reputation, but you will stay out of prison. Fight this, and we make sure every illegal thing you have ever done gets investigated until something sticks. Chen set down his glass with a hand that shook slightly. His carefully constructed empire was crumbling and he knew it. But even now, his mind worked for angles. You really think you won, Chen said bitterly. You just showed every rival you have exactly how to hurt you. That girl is your weakness now. Today it was me, tomorrow it will be someone else. Wu Bin met his eyes steadily. No, she is my strength. There is a difference. Weakness is building your entire life on manipulation and information because you are too scared to create something real. Strength is caring about someone enough to risk everything to protect them. He stood up. We are done here. Priscilla and Jessica will walk out of this house in the next 5 minutes, or I make one phone call and criminal charges get added to every lawsuit. Your choice. Chen was beaten and he knew it. He made a gesture to someone outside the office. They are free to go. Priscilla appeared in the doorway moments later, with Jessica close behind her. When Priscilla saw Wu Bin standing there, calmly waiting like he had never doubted he would get her back, something in her expression crumbled. She ran to him. They held each other in the foyer of Raymond Chen's multi-million-dollar estate, both shaking with relief. Wu Bin buried his face in her hair, breathing in the reality that she was safe. She was here. She was okay. You came back again, she whispered against his chest, echoing the words from that first night. Always, he promised. I will always come back. They walked out together, leaving Chen to face the destruction of everything he had built through lies and manipulation. The next 8 weeks were chaotic, but in the best possible way. Raymond Chen's business empire collapsed under the weight of coordinated legal action from families and businesses across California. The lawsuits were airtight, built on evidence that Priscilla had risked everything to gather. Chen tried to fight initially, but quickly realized he was buried. He ultimately fled to South Korea to avoid criminal charges that prosecutors added anyway, his influence and reputation completely destroyed. The Choi and Park families, united by their common enemy and mutual realization of being manipulated, negotiated a formal peace agreement. David Park and Wu Bin met regularly, working through 15 years of accumulated hostility. It was not easy, but both men were pragmatic enough to recognize that continuing the rivalry served no purpose. They announced a partnership deal on a new development project in San Jose, a luxury mixed-use complex that would combine the Choi family's hospitality expertise with the Park family's real estate development strength. The business community watched in shock as the two legendary rivals became allies. Jessica entered therapy to deal with the guilt and trauma of what she had done. Priscilla helped her cousin find an honest job at one of the Choi family's restaurants in San Francisco, working as a hostess while figuring out her next steps. The relationship between the cousins was damaged but slowly healing. Some betrayals took time to forgive, but Priscilla believed people deserved second chances when they genuinely tried to change. Priscilla reopened her studio, this time in a better location in downtown San Jose's Arts District. The space was perfect, affordable, and definitely not subsidized by any wealthy Korean businessman who might or might not have connections to the building's ownership. "I am paying market rate," Priscilla insisted when Woo Bin helped her move in. "Of course you are," he agreed with a perfectly straight face. "Woo Bin, I have no idea what you are implying. This is a completely normal market rate lease. The landlord is your cousin. I have many cousins. Some of them own buildings, pure coincidence." It became one of their running jokes, the playful argument that neither of them wanted to win, because it meant they were building a life together. But success and resolution came with new complications. News of Woo Bin's serious relationship with Priscilla spread through the Korean business community like wildfire. Some people were fine with it. Progressive voices in the younger generation saw it as a positive step. But the older, more traditional members of the Choi family were not happy about the heir being involved with someone outside their culture. Whispers and comments made their way back to Woo Bin. Nothing openly hostile, but pointed enough to be uncomfortable. His grandmother, the family matriarch who commanded respect even from Woo Bin's father, requested a formal meeting with Priscilla. Woo Bin was terrified in a way he had not been when facing down Raymond Chen. "You do not have to do this," he told Priscilla the morning of the meeting. "We can just ignore her. Eventually, she will accept it." "No," Priscilla said firmly, adjusting her outfit for the third time. "She is your grandmother. She is important to you. I want to meet her properly." The meeting took place at his grandmother's estate in Hillsborough, one of the Bay Area's most exclusive communities. The house was elegant, traditional, filled with Korean art and family history. Woo Bin's grandmother, Park Min-jae, was 78 years old and carried herself with the dignity of someone who had built an empire alongside her husband and then maintained it after his death. She received Priscilla in a formal sitting room, tea already prepared. "Ms. Brooks," she said in accented but perfect English, "please sit." The conversation was formal and direct. Park Min-jae asked Priscilla about her background, her family, her business, her intentions regarding Woo Bin. The questions were not hostile, but they were searching, designed to understand exactly who this young woman was. Priscilla answered honestly. She talked about losing her parents young and having to raise herself through community college and multiple jobs, about building her business from nothing because she had no safety net or family wealth to fall back on, about understanding responsibility and legacy because she carried her parents' memory with her every day. "You come from a very different world than my grandson," Park Min-jae observed. "Yes," Priscilla agreed. "But I understand what it means to honor family and to work hard for what you build. Those values cross cultures. My grandson has spent his entire life doing what was expected of him, managing family obligations, making strategic decisions for the business. You are the first thing he has chosen purely for himself." Park Min-jae studied Priscilla carefully. "I can respect that, even if I do not fully understand it yet." It was not a warm embrace or enthusiastic approval, but it was acceptance. It was permission to be part of Woo Bin's life without family opposition. For now, that was enough. As Priscilla and Woo Bin drove back to San Jose later, he reached over and took her hand. "That went better than I expected," he said. Your grandmother is formidable, but she is fair. She wants you to be happy." "I am happy." He brought her hand to his lips. "For the first time in years, I am actually happy." Priscilla smiled. "Me too." 6 months after the goodbye that changed everything, Priscilla stood on stage at the grand opening of a new community arts center in Oakland, her hometown. The center had been funded by a unique partnership between the Choi Family Foundation and Priscilla's own nonprofit initiative to provide free creative resources to underprivileged youth. The building itself was beautiful, a converted warehouse in West Oakland that had been transformed into bright studios, classroom spaces, and a gallery. Local artists had contributed murals. Community members had volunteered hundreds of hours. Priscilla's speech talked about growing up in Oakland after losing her parents, about the community programs that had given her opportunities when she had nothing, about wanting to create that same chance for the next generation. Woo Bin stood in the crowd, watching her command the stage with confidence and passion. This was her vision brought to life, her dream of giving back to the community that had raised her. Seeing her joy and pride, he felt something he had not felt since he was a kid with a sketchbook full of building designs, pure, uncomplicated happiness. After the event, they walked through Lake Merritt as the sun set over the Oakland hills. The lake was busy with joggers and families enjoying the mild evening. Priscilla talked excitedly about the programs they were planning, about the kids who had already signed up for classes, about expansion possibilities. Woo Bin listened, loving the animation in her voice, the dreams that kept getting bigger and more ambitious. Then he stopped walking and turned to face her. "That day I left your apartment and came back," he said. "You whispered, 'Stay safe,' like you were protecting me even when I was hurting you. That is when I knew." Priscilla smiled, recognizing the shift in his tone. "Knew what?" "That I would never find anyone else who would put my safety above their own heartbreak. That I would never find anyone who saw me instead of my name and my family and all the complications. That I would never find anyone like you." He pulled out a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "I am not great with traditional romance, and I know this is probably too fast by normal standards, but I am really good at making decisions I will not regret." The ring was perfect. Elegant but not ostentatious, a princess-cut diamond on a platinum band with small sapphires on either side. Woo Bin had worked with Priscilla's best friend Rachel in secret for weeks to design something that matched her style exactly. Priscilla's eyes filled with tears. Around them, people had started to notice what was happening, slowing their jogs or stopping their conversations to watch. "Priscilla Brooks, will you marry me?" She did not even let him finish the question before she was saying yes, laughing and crying at the same time, kissing him as strangers around the lake applauded and cheered. The ring fit perfectly. Woo Bin slid it onto her finger and held her close, feeling like every crazy risk of the past 6 months had led to this exact moment. "I love you," Priscilla whispered against his shoulder. "I love you too," he said. "I will always come back to you." 3 months later, they got married in an intimate ceremony that blended both their worlds. The wedding took place at a beautiful venue in Menlo Park, overlooking the bay with views stretching to San Francisco. Korean traditions mixed with elements that mattered to Priscilla. They performed the Pyebeek ceremony, where Priscilla formally greeted Woo Bin's parents and grandparents in traditional dress. But they also included tributes to Priscilla's late parents, with photos and their favorite flowers incorporated throughout the venue. The guest list was small, just close family and friends. Woo Bin's grandmother attended, dressed elegantly, and publicly welcomed Priscilla into the family. David Park sent an elaborate gift and a note congratulating Woo Bin on finally making a smart decision. Jessica was there, still working on rebuilding trust, but committed to being present for the family she had almost destroyed. She and Priscilla had been doing therapy together, working through the hurt slowly, but genuinely. Rachel, Priscilla's best friend since college, served as maid of honor and cried through the entire ceremony. The vows they exchanged were personal and honest. Woo Bin promised to always come back, to never make decisions out of fear, to support Priscilla's dreams as fiercely as she supported his. Priscilla promised to always see him for who he really was, to face challenges together rather than letting him protect her alone, to build a life based on trust and partnership. When they kissed as husband and wife, the small gathering erupted in applause. The reception was a perfect blend of both cultures. Korean food alongside Priscilla's favorite Oakland soul food. Traditional music mixed with the R&B and hip-hop she loved. Speeches in Korean and English. Woo Bin's father, normally reserved and formal, gave a surprisingly emotional speech about how proud he was of his son for choosing his own path and finding genuine happiness. Rachel's speech made everyone laugh and cry, telling stories about Priscilla's determination and resilience over the years, about how she had built a life from nothing and never complained, just worked harder. As the evening wound down, Woo Bin and Priscilla stood on the venue's terrace, looking out at the lights of the Bay Area spread below them. "Did you ever imagine this?" Priscilla asked, leaning against her new husband. "6 months ago, when you were standing outside my apartment building trying to decide whether to leave or come back." "No," Woo Bin admitted. "I imagined worst-case scenarios and risk assessments. I definitely did not imagine this much happiness." "I am glad you came back." "So am I. Best decision I ever made was turning that car around." They kissed as lights twinkled across the valley, two people from completely different worlds who had found each other against all odds and chosen to build something new together. In the months and years that followed, their life unfolded with the same blend of challenge and joy. Priscilla's studio thrived, eventually expanding to 3 locations across the Bay Area. Her nonprofit arts program grew, serving hundreds of Oakland youth annually. She became a recognized voice in the design community and a mentor to young entrepreneurs from underprivileged backgrounds. Woo Bin gradually shifted more family business operations to his younger brother, creating space to pursue architecture on the side. He designed several buildings, including 2 new Choi family restaurants that won design awards. The work brought him a satisfaction that pure business never had. Together, they bought a house in Saratoga, a beautiful community in the hills above Silicon Valley. The property had enough space for the family they planned to build and separate studios where both could create and work. They had 2 children, a daughter and then a son, who grew up bilingual and bicultural, comfortable in both their father's Korean heritage and their mother's Oakland roots. The Park Choi partnership continued to grow. What started as a single development project expanded into multiple ventures. David Park became something like a mentor to Woo Bin, teaching him lessons from decades of business experience. Jessica completed her degree and eventually started her own small business with Priscilla's support and guidance. The relationship between the cousins fully healed over time, built on genuine effort and changed behavior. Years later, when people asked Priscilla about how she and Woo Bin got together, she always told the story the same way. "He said goodbye because he was trying to protect me. I told him to stay safe because I cared more about him than my own hurt feelings, and he decided that staying safe meant staying with me." Woo Bin, listening to her tell the story for the 100th time at a dinner party in their Saratoga home, always added the same ending. "Best decision I ever made was turning that car around. Second best decision was asking her to marry me. Third best was trusting her enough to let her make her own choices about risk and safety." "What is the 4th best decision?" someone always asked. Woo Bin would look at his wife, at the life they had built together, at their children playing in the next room, and smile. "Every single day I decide to choose her again. That is the 4th best decision, and the 5th, and every decision after that. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not walking away from danger. Sometimes it is racing back toward the person who makes you feel safe enough to be yourself, who sees past your reputation to who you really are, who whispers, 'Stay safe,' when they should be slamming the door in your face. Sometimes the goodbye that changes everything is the one you refuse to accept. And sometimes, love really does conquer fear.